200 feet down to one of the main caves. A revolt against the Romans carry inscriptions that refer to the times of King David and King Solomon.
Have you ever imagined, or perhaps even dreamed, what Jerusalem will look like on the day the Lord returns? For centuries, this holy city has stood at the center of God's promises, biblical prophecies, and the hopes of millions of believers around the world. Yet what is truly remarkable is that in our own generation, secrets buried beneath the soil of Jerusalem and the Judean Desert for thousands of years are being brought back into the light. From a 10,000-year-old woven basket to ancient coins bearing the name of Jerusalem, to nearly 2,000-year-old scrolls from the book of Zechariah, and finally the ancient pilgrimage road once walked by Jesus and countless worshipers. Could these discoveries be reminders that history is moving closer to the fulfillment of God's promises? Could the day of Christ's return be drawing near? Before we begin, like, share, and subscribe. What archaeologists have just uncovered beneath Jerusalem is truly remarkable. It all began not in the midst of a bustling city center, but in the arid wastelands from the ancient caves hidden deep within the Judean Desert. In recent years, during a large-scale excavation aimed at protecting artifacts from looting, Israeli archaeologists rappelled down treacherous cliffs to enter the Cave of Horror. And there, they found something that defies all the boundaries of time. Not gold, not pearls or precious jewels, but a woven basket with a lid holding a capacity of about 90 liters, preserved almost unbelievably intact thanks to the absolutely dry and hot climate of the desert. When radiocarbon dating was conducted, scientists had to hold their breath at the results. Over 10,000 years. Pause for a moment and truly think about that number. 10 millennia, before mighty empires like Egypt or Babylon emerged. Before the patriarch Abraham took his first steps out of the land of Ur, before King David conquered Jerusalem, and long before the first temple was built on Mount Moriah, that basket already existed. Who meticulously wove each of those reeds? Who brought it deep into the cave and left it there? We may never know, but that basket is a powerful testament to the boundlessness of time and the frailty of mankind. Throughout over 10,000 years of history, humanity on the surface has endured countless wars, countless dynasties rising and falling. So many fortresses of solid rock and steel have been crushed into dust. And yet, a fragile grass-woven basket lay quietly in the darkness, unseen, untouched, surviving all destruction. But today, right in our own generation, it has reappeared before the eyes of the world. It is not just an archaeological record. It serves as a profound reminder. History, no matter how ancient, still lies right beneath our feet. The secrets of time are always kept safe, simply waiting for the Creator's permission to be brought into the light. He is the sovereign of time, the Alpha and the Omega. But that ancient basket is only the beginning of the awakening. Let us leave the silent desert and return to the epicenter of turmoil, Jerusalem. Beneath the city's modern streets, archaeologists continue to dig deep into the geological layers, and from the ash-laden soil of Second Temple-era Jerusalem, they discovered rare silver coins bearing an age of nearly 2,000 years. What captured the attention of experts, historians, and theologians alike was not the material value or the rarity of the silver itself. It was the message. The inscription was deeply engraved into its surface. In ancient Hebrew, the inscription reads, Yerushalayim HaKadosha, Holy Jerusalem. To comprehend the true weight of these words, we must travel back in time to the darkest chapter in Jewish history, the years 66 to 70 AD, the Great Jewish Revolt against the Roman Empire. At that time, Jerusalem was under siege. Roman legions of unmatched might were encamped outside the gates, their catapults battering the walls. Starvation, disease, death. The sky above Jerusalem reeked of smoke and fire. The fall of the city and the destruction of the temple were merely days away. In those hours of absolute despair, conventional wisdom would dictate minting coins to glorify generals, to commemorate bloody battles, or to invoke military strength. Yet the creators of these coins chose a completely different message. With death lurking just beyond the city gates, when every shred of earthly hope seemed extinguished, they did not declare the greatness of man. Instead, they struck into the silver a spiritual affirmation. Jerusalem is the holy city. Even in their darkest hour, their faith remained fixed upon the holiness of the city God had chosen. That coin was no mere instrument of commerce. It was a cry of faith amidst absolute despair. Then, subsequent discoveries emerged, further reinforcing this extraordinary picture. At these same archaeological sites, other coins were unearthed from the era of the Bar Kokhba revolt, the final uprising against Rome, before the Jewish people were exiled across the globe. On these coins, instead of depictions of weapons, shields, or spears, there were symbols of lyres, the temple, and inscriptions declaring the liberation of Jerusalem. This truly forces us to pause and reflect. When facing the most arduous and tragic days in their nation's history, the people of Jerusalem did not look toward new weaponry or political alliances. They returned to their roots. They remembered the Jerusalem of King David, a golden age of praise and worship. They remembered the temple of King Solomon, where the glory of the Lord once descended like a radiant cloud. They remembered an era when this city was truly the epicenter of God's presence among his people. Those coins, buried beneath the ashes of destruction for countless centuries, have now been unearthed. They are like echoes from the past, ringing out clearly after nearly 2 millennia of silence. That echo proclaims, even when the temple of stone was destroyed, the holiness of Jerusalem remained etched into metal, into the earth, and into the very sanctuary of history. History is still waiting to be revealed. If you feel the weight of these messages, please like and subscribe to our channel to continue uncovering the next mysteries beneath Jerusalem. But that wasn't the most astonishing thing. Along with the physical artifacts, the Word of God also began to awaken from the earth. In the excavation in the Judean Desert that we just mentioned, alongside the woven basket, archaeologists discovered a priceless treasure. They were fragments of biblical scrolls on parchment, nearly 2,000 years old. These were the first biblical texts found in this region in decades, since the discovery of the Dead Sea Scrolls. This discovery shook the academic world, but what sent shivers of awe through Christian and Jewish believers around the globe lay in the contents of those fragments. Among the yellowed, fragile pieces of parchment that looked as though they would crumble at a heavy touch, experts managed to decipher texts written in Greek. And those texts belonged to the Book of the 12 Minor Prophets. More specifically, they were passages from the book of Zechariah. Zechariah, a name that resonates with the heavy weight of apocalyptic prophecy. For those who study end times prophecies, Zechariah is not an unfamiliar name. It is a book containing the most powerful, intense, and glorious imagery regarding the fate of Jerusalem, the restoration of the people of Israel, immortal hope, and the final chapters in God's grand design for humanity. It was Zechariah who foretold the image of the Messiah riding into Jerusalem on a donkey. It was Zechariah who wrote of the day when the people will look on the one they have pierced. And it was also Zechariah in chapter 14 who painted an earth-shattering picture of the day of the Lord's return. On that day, his feet will stand on the Mount of Olives, east of Jerusalem, and the Mount of Olives will be split in two from east to west, forming a great valley. No one knows exactly what those Jewish refugees were thinking when they carried those scrolls into the Cave of Horror all those years ago. They were fleeing the Roman army. They knew they might starve or die of thirst in the darkness of the wilderness. Yet, amidst those chaotic and blood-soaked days, in their meager belongings, they did not carry silver or gold. They chose to carry the words of God. They chose to protect the book that spoke of the day Jerusalem would be restored, and the Lord would be king over the whole earth. They perished, but the words of Scripture live on. And now, nearly 2,000 years later, in an era where the state of Israel has been reestablished, in an era where the world is witnessing the signs of the end times lurking everywhere, those prophecies of Zechariah have been brought back into the sunlight. Is this coincidence merely by chance? That the very prophetic book speaking most clearly about the Lord's return to Jerusalem is unearthed right at this moment? Or is it the chiming of a clock ticking within God's magnificent master plan? However, every artifact in the desert, every coin in the ruins, every scroll in the caves, seemed to be preparation for the most astonishing discovery. Yet, the most astounding discovery was not found in a remote desert, but right beneath the bustling, densely populated heart of modern-day Jerusalem, hidden directly beneath the city of David. After years of painstaking and relentless excavation within the claustrophobic tunnels beneath the modern homes of the Silwan neighborhood, navigating carefully through ancient, subterranean drainage channels, Israeli archaeologists have finally brought to light a monumental site that fundamentally shifts our entire perspective of the Holy Land. They have unearthed the ancient pilgrimage road. This is no ordinary dirt path or simple cobblestone street. This is a grand, sweeping avenue paved with massive stone slabs, stretching for hundreds of meters. It ascends directly from the Pool of Siloam in the lush southern valley, winding its way uphill to culminate right at the towering southern wall of the Temple Mount. Try to envision the sheer, breathtaking scale of it. This discovery is not like unearthing a coin that you can hold in the palm of your hand or a fragile parchment you can place under glass. This is not merely an isolated artifact. This is an entire, sprawling infrastructure. It was the pulsing central artery, the very lifeblood of ancient Jerusalem. A road where, 2,000 years ago, hundreds of thousands, perhaps millions of Jewish pilgrims from every corner of the known world set foot. 3 times a year, during the great pilgrimage festivals of Passover, Shavuot, Pentecost, and Sukkot, tabernacles, the faithful would gather here. They would ritually purify themselves in the living waters of the Pool of Siloam, don their pure white garments, and raise their voices to sing the Psalms of Ascent. Imagine their steps, heavy with awe and overflowing with joyous tears, striking these exact same paving stones as they marched upward to worship God at the magnificent temple. But for Christians around the globe, this road carries a profound significance that transcends even the rich tapestry of Jewish history, because it serves as tangible, indisputable proof of a living reality. Jesus of Nazareth walked upon these very stones. The New Testament vividly records the miracle where Jesus healed a man born blind, instructing him to go and wash his eyes in the Pool of Siloam. That sacred pool lies at the exact starting point, the very foot of this ancient avenue. Throughout his earthly ministry and preaching in Jerusalem, Jesus and his disciples undoubtedly ascended these precise, meticulously carved stone steps to enter the courts of the temple. Imagine the overwhelming sensation to stand in that dimly lit subterranean tunnel today, to reach out and press your bare hand against the cold, worn limestone, and to know with absolute certainty that 2 millennia ago, the feet of the Messiah touched that exact physical space. Then came the tragic year of 70 AD. Jerusalem fell. This magnificent, bustling thoroughfare was ruthlessly destroyed by the Roman legions. It was violently buried beneath meters of scorching ash, collapsed masonry, and the accumulated debris of centuries of history. It was swallowed whole, forgotten beneath the relentless dust of time. The rhythmic footsteps of the pilgrims abruptly faded away. The joyous singing of the psalms was violently replaced by the heavy, suffocating silence of the earth. Those silent stones lay in the darkness, bearing the crushing, agonizing weight of destruction and exile for nearly 2,000 long years. Yet today, that prolonged silence has finally been broken. Through the extraordinary, back-breaking efforts of modern archaeologists, meter by meter, every single ancient stone step is being painstakingly brought back into the light of day. The grand avenue leading up to the Temple Mount, after 20 centuries of being entombed, is now being meticulously cleared and restored, as if it is quietly preparing itself, waiting in silent anticipation for a new set of footsteps. But the earth of Jerusalem does not only yield stone structures and silver coins, it yields names. It yields the very signatures of the men who walked its ancient streets and spoke the words of the Almighty. Just a stone's throw from the southern wall of the Temple Mount, in an area known as the Ophel, archaeologists were meticulously sifting through the dust of antiquity. Using a groundbreaking technique called wet sifting, washing away centuries of dirt to reveal the smallest hidden objects, they made a discovery of staggering proportions. They found tiny pieces of stamped clay, no larger than a human fingernail. These are known as bulle, ancient seals, used to authenticate royal, legal, and official documents. When a scroll was tied with string, a lump of wet clay was pressed over the knot, and a signet ring was stamped into it. If the seal was broken, the message was compromised. On one of these tiny, fragile clay seals, pressed into the earth over 2,700 years ago, was a name that echoes through the grand halls of biblical history. The Paleo-Hebrew inscription read clearly, "Belonging to Hezekiah, son of Ahaz, king of Judah." Hezekiah, one of the most righteous kings to ever sit on the throne in Jerusalem. The king who cleansed the temple, who smashed the idols of the false gods. To truly feel the weight of this artifact, we must transport ourselves back to the year 701 BC. Jerusalem was entirely surrounded by the unstoppable Assyrian war machine, led by the ruthless king Sennacherib. The Assyrians had already obliterated the surrounding cities. The psychological terror was absolute. The enemy commander stood outside the walls, mocking the God of Israel, promising total annihilation, slavery, and death. In that moment of sheer human desperation, King Hezekiah did not surrender. He took the threatening letter from the Assyrian king, walked into the temple, spread it out before the Lord, and fell to his knees in desperate prayer for deliverance. To hold his royal seal today is not just to hold a piece of ancient bureaucracy, it is to hold a physical manifestation of a faith that saved a nation. But the earth was not finished revealing its secrets. Less than 10 feet away from the seal of the king, in the exact same layer of ancient, ash-covered soil, archaeologists found another clay bulla. Though slightly damaged, the ancient Hebrew letters spelled out a name that sent shockwaves through the historical and theological world. Yeshayahu Nevi, Isaiah the prophet. Think about the magnitude of this reality. The king and the prophet, Hezekiah and Isaiah, two of the most pivotal figures in the Old Testament whose lives and ministries were inextricably linked. Together, they navigated one of the darkest and most terrifying periods of Jerusalem's history. It was Isaiah who brought God's message to Hezekiah in the darkest hour of the siege, assuring the trembling king that the city would not fall, that not a single Assyrian arrow would be shot into Jerusalem, and that the Lord of hosts himself would passionately defend it. And now, 27 centuries later, their personal seals are found lying together. On the back of the Isaiah seal, one can even see the faint imprint of the woven fabric of the scroll it once sealed. Even more breathtaking, on the edge of the clay, there is a partial fingerprint, the fingerprint of the man who pressed it. Was it the prophet Isaiah himself, the man who saw the Lord sitting on a throne, high and lifted up? This is not merely an archaeological triumph. It is a profound spiritual metaphor. In apocalyptic literature, particularly the Book of Revelation, the opening of seals marks the unfolding of God's final judgments and the execution of his ultimate master plan for the earth. Here, in the physical realm, the literal seals of the very prophet who spoke so extensively about the coming of the Messiah and the king who represented the royal line of David are being unsealed from the dust. It is as if history is verifying its own authenticity, reminding a skeptical world that the men who wrote these prophecies were flesh and blood, their agonizing trials were real, and the God who delivered them is very real. Yet, to fully grasp the prophetic weight of what is happening under Jerusalem, we must move slightly east, descending from the heights of the Temple Mount into a place of immense biblical gravity, the Kidron Valley. Also known as the Valley of Jehoshaphat, this deep, sweeping ravine separates the eastern wall of Jerusalem from the Mount of Olives. For decades, archaeologists have been excavating deep into the bedrock of this valley, uncovering the massive, ancient fortifications surrounding the Gihon Spring. The Gihon Spring is not just a water source, it is the pulsing, subterranean lifeblood of ancient Jerusalem. It was here, in the deep valleys, that King Solomon was anointed as king, with the blast of the ram's horn echoing off the canyon walls. Archaeologists have unearthed colossal stone towers and hidden water channels dating back to the time of the Canaanites and the Israelite kings, built specifically to guard this precious water. The sheer scale of these underground fortresses defies modern engineering logic, utilizing massive, cyclopean boulders that weigh up to 3 tons each, moved by ancient hands in the suffocating darkness of the caves. But beyond the marvel of ancient architecture, the Kidron Valley holds a terrifying and majestic place in biblical prophecy. It is an area soaked in the tears and triumphs of the biblical narrative. It was this very valley that a weeping King David crossed barefoot when fleeing a rebellion. And centuries later, it was this exact same valley that Jesus crossed on the night of his betrayal. Moving from the intimacy of the Last Supper to the agonizing, crushing weight of the Garden of Gethsemane on the Mount of Olives. But its greatest significance lies not in the past, but in the future. According to the prophet Joel, this valley, the Valley of Jehoshaphat, which translates to the Lord Judges, is the very place where the Almighty will gather all nations for the final, ultimate judgment. It is the valley that the Messiah will cross when he returns to set his feet upon the Mount of Olives, splitting the mountain in two before passing through the eastern gate to enter the Temple Mount in absolute glory. By excavating the Kidron Valley, by unearthing the colossal ruins and clearing the ancient flow of the Gihon Spring, archaeologists are quite literally uncovering the ancient path of the Messiah. Furthermore, the prophets Ezekiel and Zechariah both prophesied of a coming day when living waters will flow out from the threshold of the Temple Mount, cascading down into this very valley, bringing miraculous, abundant life to the barren, toxic wasteland of the Dead Sea. The Gihon Spring, hidden, choked by debris, and heavily fortified deep beneath the earth for countless centuries, is a powerful physical precursor to this ultimate spiritual reality. As modern workers dig deeper, stripping away the dirt to expose the ancient bedrock of the Kidron, they are doing something far more significant than recovering history. They are touching the very stage of the future. The earth is being prepared. The valleys are being excavated. The ancient pathways are being made clear for the King. To truly comprehend the magnitude of what is happening beneath the ancient bedrock of Jerusalem, we must now take a step back. We must pull our gaze away from the subterranean tunnels, rise above the limestone walls of the Holy City, and look at the broader canvas of our modern world. Look at the globe we inhabit today. We are living in an era that feels as though it is vibrating on a totally different frequency, a time of unprecedented, almost suffocating turbulence. If you listen closely to the news, to the scientists, to the geopolitical analysts, you can hear a collective gasp of anxiety echoing across continents. The earth itself seems to be groaning, just as the Apostle Paul described like a creation in the agonizing, yet purposeful pangs of childbirth. Across the great oceans, we are witnessing extreme weather anomalies that defy historical records. Unimaginable tempests battering the coastlines of the Americas, tearing through modern infrastructure with terrifying ease. In the east, we see tectonic plates shifting, releasing deep, hum-like vibrations that register on seismographs as a restless earth struggling to maintain its balance. And even sweeping across the Mediterranean and the Middle East, colossal Sahara dust storms have repeatedly blotted out the sun, turning the midday sky into an eerie, blood-red twilight. To anyone intimately familiar with apocalyptic literature, particularly the chilling imagery of the final seals of Revelation, these physical phenomena are not just meteorological anomalies. They evoke the profound cosmic disturbances spoken of by the prophets of old: a darkened sun, a bloodied moon, a shaking earth. Humanity stands on the precipice of technological marvels, yet we are simultaneously drowning in an ocean of moral decay, ideological polarization, and the ever-present shadow of global conflict. The very foundations of human society, truth, identity, and peace, feel as though they are violently crumbling. For many looking at this global panorama, the natural reaction is profound fear. It is easy to watch the headlines and believe that the final, devastating curtain of human history is rapidly falling, leaving us in darkness. But this is exactly where the miraculous paradox of God's timeline reveals itself. While the surface of the world is loud, chaotic, and shaking with fear, down below, deep within the dust of Jerusalem, the earth is quietly and methodically speaking a completely different language. While modern empires argue over borders and ideologies, the ancient soil is yielding undeniable evidence of a kingdom that supersedes them all. God does not operate in random coincidences. The creator of the cosmos is the ultimate author of history, and an author knows exactly when to reveal the hidden plot twists of his story. Is it merely an accident of history that precisely at the moment when the world feels the most lost, the physical anchors of our biblical faith are being unearthed? No, the stones are crying out. When Jesus made his triumphal entry into Jerusalem on the back of a donkey, the religious leaders demanded that he silence his disciples' joyous shouts. His response still echoes through the Kidron Valley today. I tell you, if these were silent, the very stones would cry out. For 2,000 years, those stones were buried, crushed, and silenced by Roman fire, Byzantine conquests, Crusader wars, and Islamic empires. But today, right now, in our generation, they are finally crying out. They are crying out to the businessman in New York who feels utterly disconnected from the divine. They are crying out to the persecuted believer in the underground churches of Asia. They are crying out to the weary mother in Europe, the struggling student in South America, and the lonely soul searching for truth on the internet. The message of these stones transcends languages, borders, and denominations. They are broadcasting a monumental truth. The book you hold in your hands, the Bible, is not a collection of mythological allegories. It is not a book of fairy tales crafted to comfort ancient peasants. It is a painstakingly accurate historical ledger. The kings whose names are stamped in clay actually ruled. The prophets who penned the visions of the end times actually wept over this city. The Messiah who promised to return actually walked on these very granite steps. The blood he shed was real, the cross he bore was real, and the empty tomb he left behind is the undisputed turning point of the cosmos. This is why, as we watch the world tremble, we do not need to cower in fear. We do not need to look at the shifting tectonic plates, the dust-filled skies, or the roaring of the seas with the dread of those who have no hope. The uncovering of Jerusalem is a divine counter-narrative to global despair. It is a clarion call from the Almighty, piercing through the noise of the 21st century. Every time the dirt is brushed away from a 2,000-year-old scroll, every time a new step of the pilgrimage road is brought into the sunlight, it is as if God is gently tapping humanity on the shoulder and whispering, "I have not forgotten." He has not forgotten the promises he made to Abraham under the starry desert sky. He has not forgotten the covenant he made with David regarding an eternal throne. He has not forgotten the agonizing tears his son wept in the Garden of Gethsemane. And most importantly, he has not forgotten the promise he made to you and me, the promise that he will return to make all things new. We are witnessing the grand convergence of timelines. The physical restoration of the land of Israel, the geopolitical spotlight fixed firmly on the Middle East, and the archaeological resurrection of ancient Jerusalem are all aligning with terrifying and beautiful precision. The stage is being aggressively set. The props of history are being pulled from the storage of the earth and placed onto the platform. The valley pathways are being cleared. As mortals bound by time, we can never predict the day or the hour. The precise moment the heavens will tear open remains a mystery locked within the sovereign will of the Father. But the signs of the times are not meant to give us a calendar date. They are meant to give us a posture of readiness, a posture of unwavering anticipation. When we survey the global chaos, the relentless drumbeat of wars, the fraying of societies, and the terrifying unpredictability of the natural world, and then look down at the exposed, undeniable roots of our faith in Jerusalem, our hearts should not sink into the mire of despair. They should soar. Because as believers, we hold the key to understanding the ultimate paradox of our time. We understand the profound difference between the end of the world and the end of an age. The secular world looks at the encroaching darkness, the failing human institutions, and the apocalyptic headlines, and it sees only a tomb. The pain of the present world, the economic tremors, the geopolitical seismic shifts, the groanings of a fractured creation is not the pain of a dying planet taking its final breath. It is the agonizing, bloody, and absolutely necessary birth pangs of a new creation. Jerusalem is not just an ancient museum of the past, preserving the relics of bygone eras. It is the undisputed capital of the future. And it is the exact place where the ultimate culmination of human history will manifest in absolute earth-shattering glory. It is the nexus point where the tears of Golgotha will finally give way to the triumphant reign on the Mount of Olives. Therefore, let the earth shake. Let the geopolitical structures of men, with all their fleeting arrogance, crumble into the dust from which they were formed. Let the skies darken with the ashes of fading empires and the collapse of human pride. Our foundation is not built upon the shifting, unstable sands of human achievement, political alliances, or technological salvation. It is built entirely upon the Rock of Ages, the eternal Word of God, whose physical footprints are permanently, undeniably etched into the limestone of the Holy City. The majestic unveiling of Jerusalem from beneath the dirt of centuries is the greatest, most tangible physical reminder to a weary, fractured, and exhausted world to simply look up. Lift your eyes from the terrifying glare of the daily headlines. Lift your eyes from the heavy, suffocating weight of your personal anxieties and earthly struggles. Lift your eyes toward the eastern sky, because the history being resurrected from the dust today is not looking backward. It is aggressively, purposefully pointing toward the blazing reality of tomorrow. Look at what the earth itself is doing. The ancient pilgrimage roads have been swept clean of their 2,000-year-old debris. The royal seals of the prophets and kings have been found. The valleys have been excavated. The very stones of the earth, long silenced by the crushing weight of exile and destruction, have finally cried out in our generation. The royal protocol is complete. The earthly stage has been meticulously set by the Creator himself. All that remains is for the heavens to open. Thank you for watching this video to the end. If this story made you think, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel to stay with us for the next revelations.